These are 4 bows. This one has a notch on the end, a reinforced split on this one, a Y branch there, and a more primitive version there. But stay tuned and we'll get into this pretty deep. This is the back-saving way to drill. That way you don't have to bend over as far, so it's an alternate drilling position. That's your bonus. What fun would a For You to Survive video be if I didn't make some flames? There we go, success. Little technique, if it starts to go out, give it a light bit of air. And it grows even more intense. Welcome to another episode of For You to Survive. There's been a viewer of mine, Warpath, and this viewer's been working on natural cordage bowstring fire making. So something that came up was, how do you string a bow? So this video is in response to how do you string a bow, that question. So this viewer is actually making great gains on getting an ember with natural cordage and perseverance. So good job, Warpath. Let's get into it. Today, I don't want to be confusing, but I'm going to talk about single wrap bowstrings. I'm going to talk about reverse wrap bowstrings, but that's on a bowstring. Now, on the other hand, I'm going to talk about a spindle, single wrapping a spindle and double wrapping the spindle. So, I don't want those terms to get confusing, but that's going to help make sense of this. Single wrap bowstring, wrapping one direction, only one wrap, and the reverse wrap bowstring, the away and towards, the classic cordage making technique. This is a single wrapped spindle. The spindle is single wrapped, it only has one wrap in there. The string goes around the spindle one time. The double wrap spindle looks like this. The bowstring is wrapped around the spindle twice. That is a double wrapped spindle. Let's start off here. Typically on my bows, I like to have a fork on one side, and I have many options on the bottom end of the bow. This one's a notch. So I have a dogbane bowstring that I put on a fork, and in the notch, I have the bowstring. Now, interestingly enough, I can take the bowstring, make an overhand knot, and it actually gets stuck in the fork of the bow. So that's a potential way to string a bow. But the way I have this tuned up is I have the loop of the reverse wrap cordage on a fork of the bow. Let's take a look real quick. Here's the fork of the bow, and here's the notch. Let's talk about the single wrapped bowstring. I have some basswood fibers here, and typically whenever I make a bowstring, I like to either have it 2 fingers thick or a good thumb thick. So that's definitely a little bit more than a thumb thickness, but that gets the point across just slightly, or somewhere around a 2-finger thickness mark. This is bent here, so it's weak. So I probably am not going to use these fibers because I don't want to take the risk. So these would have to get removed. Now I can tie an overhand knot. Actually, what I did with the other ones is I soaked them so they'd be more flexible, because they're more likely to, fibers are more likely to rip and tear if they're not damp. So if they're dry, they'll usually break. So I got my overhand knot, and I'm twisting in one direction. That's basically, that's a single wrap. Reverse wrap would be if I started in the middle and I twisted it away and towards, away and towards. Classic reverse wrap. Here's my damp basswood bark bowstring. It's a single wrap. I have the overhand knot on top, and that makes a pretty good length. probably more than I need, but never hurts to have a little extra length, so if it breaks, you have an option. Then I have my reverse wrapped basswood bowstring, and it's damp because I soaked it about an hour, went to lunch, and came back. So usually around pinky thick is good. So that's about what I like. So I'm going to give you a close-up on what I have. So that's about the size, somewhere close, but that gets it done. Generally for my cordage, I like to have it stretched out, have my thumbs up on my chest, and then have another thumbs up. So that's about 4 feet long. I'll tie an overhand loop knot on the end, so I have a way to attach it to the bow. And now with this loop, it goes on one of the forks. And how do I know what tension to use? Well, I make a little loop here. I call it the eye of the bowstring. So once I have that, then I can wrap around again, making a round turn and 2/2 hitch. And there we go. And that's a good tension. I'm going to go around once. On the second time, I'm going to come through the string. That'll make it a little bit more secure. And then since I have extra string, I'm going to tie my 1/2 hitches in there. There's 1/2 hitch, and here's the other 1/2 hitch. If I didn't have as much string, I'd have to only wrap once, and that's okay. This is a pretty good system. The spindle's pretty tight, so yeah, that's a good tension. So I got the right bowstring tension the first try because I made the eye of the bowstring. So that's about the size. That's the size. I can pinch and feel my 2 fingers between it. If it's too small, let's just say it was this small, I couldn't feel my fingers between there. So the loop has to be big enough so I can feel my fingers between it. That is the eye of the bowstring. With a reinforced split bow, what I do is I tie a clove hitch and make it nice and tight because I don't want the split to run out and break off when I'm using it. So I tie it nice and tight. Then if I have extra string left, I can do a reef knot to follow up. And then that gives me extra assurance that my bow is going to stay together and not break. So then if I push it up a little bit, that tension keeps the split together. I have my milkweed cordage. Generally for my reinforced split bows, that works good with the single wrap bowstring. So for that situation, I make an overhand knot on the end, which I already have. Then I'm going to make a second overhand knot. I'm going to put that through the fork, and I'm going to pull on it. Then what I got to do now is keep twisting. So I'm going to keep twisting because I want my single wrap bowstring to stay twisted. Keeping it nice and tight. There we go. Nice and twisted. Get that eye of the bowstring in there. And then I have to twist a little bit more. I want to keep the tension correct. And then that's going to go right in the split. So now I know where my bow needs to be tied off. And then I basically use the same method I did with the parachute cord. I picked the parachute cord because it would be easier to see how to tie it off. So essentially that's it. You tie in there, keep the twist going, and put your half hitches in. Now it's possible to cut the excess off of this, but again, I like having the extra in case the bowstring breaks. That way I don't have to run around and make another bowstring. And I'll put my second half hitch in here. Sometimes I make the half hitch slippery so I can remove it easier, but I find that the security of 2 half hitches works out just fine. So let's load the spindle. And there we go. That's a good fit. That's a good fit. And I can always adjust the tension by using my 4 fingers and my thumb. So when I drill, my fingers are going to squeeze and my thumb's going to push the string. This is a real good key. So my fingers push and my thumb pushes. Squeeze the fingers and push with the thumb. And that changes the tension on the spindle. So you can drill confidently and very vigorously and effectively. So that's the single wrap bowstring. If your bow has the second fork on it, on the bottom, that really offers a good opportunity. So somewhere in a range of 1 or 2 fingers. So to string this bow, I have my overhand knot on top, which keeps the fibers together. And then I'm going to make a second overhand knot, just like I showed you. That goes in the fork. Tighten everything up. Of course, with all single wrap bowstrings, you want to keep the wrap going in there. So I'm going to keep twisting it. And then get your eye of the bowstring. And then you know where to tie it off. So I know that right here is where I need to work on it. So I'll go around once. I'll come inside the fork. Since I have extra length, I'll go around. Now I can make my half hitches, but again, keeping your tension going because you don't want to lose your tension. Now the half hitches come. So 1 half hitch. And the other half hitch. I'll do good technique and keep this string tension going. Yes, it looks a little bit bulky and clunky, but this is natural fibers and cordage. And that's why it helps to have a little bit thicker diameter spindle. So once again, I'll load the spindle and I got some good tension here. Now there's a few extra fibers here sticking up, so these can be trimmed off so they don't interfere when you drill, because they will sometimes get caught in the string and make your drilling much more difficult. So here's what it looks like with the half hitches on there. There's the extra fibers that need to be removed. The reverse wrap cordage has its eye on the end, so I can put that on the end of a fork. Then, something that's important to do is, I call it the second twist. I twist the string until it gets tighter. If it looks like the cordage is opening up, you're going the wrong way. So everything should look nice and tight. Twist the string until it tightens up. If it loosens up, it's wrong. So you don't want that. You want the cordage to be tight. Now that I have my second twist, put the eye of the bowstring in there and hold on to the string at the end, keeping your second twist going. Now you can put that in the end of the bow. So now I have it in my reinforced split, and that's nice because the reinforced split holds the string where I need it. So I keep twisting the string. I'm going to go around once since I have the extra length of cordage, and then I'll put my half hitches in again. Nothing different on that. 1 half hitch, keep the tension by twisting it, and the other half hitch. Okay, so This one looks like it almost holds the eye of the bowstring. Time to load the spindle. Well, that's a good secure hold. So that'll work for a reverse wrap bowstring. I want to talk to you about something. The classic bow drill that you might see in survival books is usually one twist, one wrap of the spindle. So that's good, but I think a lot of that was dealing with using man-made cordage. If you use man-made cordage, it's usually stronger and more generous. It's more forgiving. It gives you more options. But with natural cordage, you might not have those options. You might not be able to get away with that. So yes, there's the single wrap, but I want to show you the double wrap of the spindle. So we made the eye of the bowstring. Okay, that's all well and good, but another way of making the eye of the bowstring is to simply wrap around the spindle once and then pull it until a spindle goes down at a 45-degree angle. So if it's 90 degrees like a cross, you want to pull it until the cross tilts. And then you tie it off the way I showed you. But that'll give you the single wrap of the spindle. For the double wrap of the spindle, that's going to save wear and tear on your bowstring. So let's take it from the top here. Keep the tension on the bowstring. I'm going to take the spindle and I'm going to wrap around the spindle once, twice, and then I'm going to keep the twist going, the second twist concept, and then I'm going to pull the bowstring until the spindle tilts to about 45 degrees. Then put the bowstring in the reinforced split. So I can take that out, tie it off like I showed you, come around, put a half hitch in there, put another half hitch in there, okay. Now with the two half hitches in there, this bow is secured. So essentially I'm going to wrap around once, I'm going to wrap around twice. Generally it's good to put your bow in your belly. So now, whenever I drill, the spindle is going to stretch the string a little bit. Sometimes the bow bends a little bit. So now I can drill just about perpendicular, almost like the cross idea like we were talking about earlier. So, but I usually drill with just a slight downward angle, but that puts plenty of good tension on the spindle to allow it to spin. But more importantly, that takes off a lot of strain on the bowstring because there's just two wraps. With a single wrap around the spindle, I find that when my string breaks, it's usually in the center of the bowstring because that's where so much strain goes on. So if I have the second wrap around the spindle, the strain on the bowstring is transferred around. So there's more surface area for the bowstring to take the abuse or take the strain of drilling. Simply put, there's more bowstring to take the strain of drilling. A spindle that's single wrapped has so much strain on one spot that it's really hard on the bowstring. But double wrapping the spindle really reduces the strain on the bowstring, so you can have more drilling time and your bowstrings will last longer because you only have so many fires with a natural cordage bowstring. It's usually more generous if you use a man-made bowstring, but even with the man-made bowstring, if your spindle and notches aren't carved correctly or your socket's not so good, these things will break too. So don't get overconfident with man-made cordage. In a survival situation, man-made cordage is going to save you time. So that's the thing to consider. Use the man-made cordage first to save time, or your ferro rod and fire drop. But Talking strictly natural cordage, that's how you're going to save your bowstring so it'll last longer. Okay, so this bowstring's been out of the water a little bit. Well, who's to say I can't just dunk it in a little bit of water, get it moist, and then drill? I don't want this dripping wet where water keeps falling off of it, but damp is going to make the bowstring fibers much stronger because they're less likely to break because of dryness and brittleness.